It was a chilly winter evening with large snowflakes filling the air when my best friend Erik and I drove slowly down that lonely Norwegian country road. We were heading to my house in a rented van, and I knew exactly what we'd find there. A black Mercedes covered in snow was parked brazenly in my driveway. Inside my house, in my own bed, my wife would be with another man, the same arrogant accountant who'd sworn to destroy me after I'd blocked his promotion at our local marina club. What happened next would be captured on camera and become the most satisfying revenge I've ever orchestrated. Sometimes when someone promises to pay you back with interest, you have to show them what compound interest really looks like. Quick, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to deal with someone who thought they were untouchable. Now, if you've ever been betrayed by someone who underestimated your ability to fight back, smash that subscribe button because this story is about a man who turned his enemy's arrogance into his own downfall. Hit that like button if you think people who destroy families deserve to face consequences. Let's dive into this Nordic revenge saga. My name is Lars Hansen, and I'm a 32-year-old owner of a small but profitable manufacturing company in a quiet Norwegian town. I specialize in making patented high-quality steel components that we export to 14 countries. It's a business I inherited from my uncle, who invented the specialized machinery we use. The company employs just me and one part-time worker, a single mother who handles administrative tasks. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest and provides a good living in our small community where everyone knows everyone else's business. My life was simple and comfortable until I met Isabella Nordahl, my common-law wife of 4 years. Isabella worked as an administrative assistant at the local accounting firm, a respectable job in our town, where professional positions are highly valued. For the first 3 years, Isabella and I had what I thought was a perfect relationship. We lived in my family's house on the outskirts of town, took regular vacations, and talked seriously about marriage and children. I believed we were building something permanent together. That changed when Isabella's company hired a new senior accountant named Thomas Eriksson. Thomas had a reputation in our small community, not entirely a good one. He was known for his expensive tastes, his arrogance, and most notably, his habit of pursuing other men's wives and girlfriends. Thomas had recently gone through a messy divorce after his wife caught him cheating. She'd kept their expensive house and most of their assets, leaving Thomas living with his mother and driving an overpriced Mercedes with vanity plates that became the subject of town gossip. My first encounter with Thomas came through our local marina club, where I'd been a member for several years. When the position of club chairman became available, Thomas nominated himself, confident that his financial background made him the obvious choice. What Thomas didn't know was that I discovered he'd been accepting bribes from potential members, allowing his friends to skip ahead of the years-long waiting list for boat slips. When the vote came, I spoke against his nomination and provided evidence of his corrupt practices. Thomas lost the election by a significant margin. As members filed out of the meeting, he cornered me near the parking lot. Thomas's face was red with humiliation as he stepped close to me. "You'll regret this, Hansen. I always pay back with interest, and I have a very long memory. I should have taken that threat more seriously." Within months of starting his new job, Thomas began showing unusual interest in Isabella. She'd come home talking about their lunch meetings, his expensive watch, his stories about vacations in Monaco, and how impressed she was with his sophisticated lifestyle. When Isabella started dressing differently on days when Thomas would be at her office, I knew I had a problem. I tried talking to her about Thomas's reputation, explaining how he destroyed other relationships in our community. Isabella snapped at me with unexpected venom. "You're being jealous and paranoid. Thomas is successful and worldly, unlike some people who never leave this small town. Maybe you're just jealous of a man who's actually accomplished something." Her words stung because I knew Thomas was deliberately targeting her to get revenge on me. He didn't want Isabella, he wanted to humiliate me by taking her. The situation escalated when my group of friends, we call ourselves the Lottery Club because we pool money for weekly gambling, planned our annual skiing trip to the mountains. It's a tradition we've maintained for years, and Isabella has always supported these trips. But this year, she seemed unusually interested in my departure date. 2 days before I was supposed to leave, my friend Erik called with disturbing news. Erik's voice was tense with concern. "Lars, I heard something at the pub last night. Thomas was bragging to his friends about having plans with a certain someone's wife, while that someone was away skiing. He was drunk and saying too much, but everyone knew he was talking about Isabella. I felt my blood turn cold. Are you certain? Erik spoke with grim certainty. Certainly enough. The bartender heard him say he'd finally get his revenge on the guy who humiliated him at the Marina Club. He's been planning this for months. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Isabella directly, I would give her the rope to hang herself, and Thomas along with her. I made arrangements with Erik to delay our departure by 2 days. I also had a friend install a security system in my house, including cameras that could be monitored remotely. If Isabella was planning to betray our relationship, I wanted undeniable evidence. The next morning, I kissed Isabella goodbye and told her I'd be gone for a week. Then Erik and I drove to his house in the next town, where we waited. It didn't take long. That evening, my security system alerted me to movement at my house. I watched through the app on my phone as Thomas's distinctive Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Then I watched as Isabella let him into our home. I turned to Erik with cold determination. This is it. Are you ready for this? Erik nodded grimly. He was almost as angry as I was. He'd known Isabella for years and considered her part of our extended friend group. Her betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an attack on our entire community. We drove through the snowy night back to my house. Just as I'd expected, Thomas's Mercedes was parked boldly in my driveway, covered with fresh snow. He wasn't even trying to hide his presence. Erik parked our van on the street, positioning it so Thomas would have a clear path to leave, assuming he'd be in any condition to drive. Erik adjusted his camera equipment with professional focus. Are you sure about this plan? I'm sure. Thomas wanted to humiliate me in my own home. Now he's going to learn what real humiliation feels like. We approached the house quietly. All the lights were off except for the bedroom. Through the window, we could see shadows moving behind the curtains. I used my key to unlock the front door, and we slipped inside. Erik positioned himself to get clear photographs of whatever we found. Then I walked to the bedroom door and listened. The sounds from inside confirmed my worst fears and greatest hopes simultaneously. Isabella was betraying our relationship in the most intimate way possible, but she was also providing me with the evidence I needed to end this situation permanently. I threw open the bedroom door and switched on the lights. The scene that greeted us was exactly what I'd expected, but somehow still shocking to witness. Isabella and Thomas were in my bed, completely unaware of our presence until the lights came on. Isabella screamed and grabbed for the sheets. Thomas, startled awake, looked around in confusion before realizing what was happening. I spoke with deadly calm. Hello, Thomas. Comfortable. Erik's camera flash began firing continuously, capturing everything. Thomas scrambled to get up, but I was faster. Years of physical work had kept me in good shape, while Thomas's sedentary lifestyle showed. I grabbed him by the shoulders and threw him out of bed. My voice remained controlled despite my rage. Get out of my house. Now. Thomas started with desperate panic. Lars, wait, I can explain. I interrupted, pushing him toward the door. Explain outside. Naked, in the snow, just like you deserve. I physically escorted Thomas to the front door and shoved him out into the winter night. The temperature was well below freezing, and snow was still falling heavily. Thomas shouted from the doorway, his voice shaking from cold and shock. My clothes. I replied before slamming the door. Isabella can bring them to you. Inside, Isabella was crying and trying to get dressed. I told her with ice-cold finality, get his clothes and get out. Both of you are no longer welcome in this house. She gathered Thomas's clothes and shoes, put on her own coat and boots, and rushed outside. A few minutes later, we heard Thomas's Mercedes start up and drive away into the night. Erik and I spent the rest of the evening packing Isabella's belongings into boxes. She didn't return that night, probably staying at Thomas's mother's house or a hotel. The next morning, we loaded her possessions into the van and drove to her parents' house. No one answered the door when we knocked, but we could see faces watching us from behind the curtains. We stacked the boxes against the front door and left. But my revenge against Thomas was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, I began implementing a plan that would destroy his reputation as thoroughly as he'd tried to destroy my relationship. Erik, who was skilled with photo editing software, had taken some particularly unflattering pictures of Thomas during our confrontation. He enhanced certain aspects of the photos to make Thomas look even more ridiculous than he already did. I printed one of these photos, showing Thomas and Isabella in my bed, and mailed it to Isabella with a note. Hopefully this picture of you and your dream man can replace the wedding photo I never got a chance to take. But that was just the beginning. Through our network of friends in town, word spread quickly about what had happened. In a small Norwegian community, this kind of scandal travels fast. Thomas's reputation, already damaged by his divorce and corrupt behavior at the Marina Club, was completely destroyed. His clients at the accounting firm began asking for different representatives. His colleagues stopped including him in business meetings. Even his mother was reportedly embarrassed by the gossip surrounding her son. The most devastating blow came when someone, I honestly don't know who, created and distributed flyers around town featuring Thomas's photo with text describing his services to lonely wives. The flyers were professionally printed and appeared in mailboxes, on car windshields, and on bulletin boards throughout the community. Thomas went to the police, accusing me of creating the flyers. I was questioned, but honestly told them I had no knowledge of who created them. The investigation was dropped due to a lack of evidence. Meanwhile, Isabella discovered she was pregnant. She contacted me, hoping I would take responsibility for the child, but I insisted on a DNA test before acknowledging any paternity. When the results came back, they showed I was not the father. Surprisingly, they also showed Thomas was not the father either. Further investigation revealed Isabella had been involved with a third man, a married coworker whose wife immediately filed for divorce when the truth came out. While my revenge against Thomas was playing out, I was trying to rebuild my personal life. Dating in a small town is challenging, especially when everyone knows your recent history. I tried online dating with mixed results. My first few dates were disasters. One woman had used a photo that was 10 years old, another was still married and wanted her husband to watch, and a third had serious financial problems she expected me to solve. Then I met Astrid through a mutual friend. She was a 28-year-old nurse who had recently returned to our town after her marriage ended when she caught her husband cheating with his secretary. Astrid was beautiful, intelligent, and had a 2-year-old son named Oscar. When we met at a local cafe, there was immediate chemistry. Our relationship developed slowly and naturally. Unlike my experience with Isabella, Astrid was honest about her feelings and intentions. She wasn't impressed by expensive gifts or fancy restaurants. She valued genuine connection and shared values. However, Thomas, apparently never learning from his mistakes, began pursuing Astrid as well. He took her to expensive restaurants, bought theater tickets, and even arranged a weekend trip to London. I was worried that Thomas's wealth and sophisticated lifestyle would win Astrid over, just as they had with Isabella. But Astrid was different. She saw through Thomas's performance and recognized his manipulative nature. When Astrid told me about Thomas's advances, I decided to be completely honest with her about our history. I explained how Thomas had targeted Isabella to get revenge on me, how he destroyed my previous relationship, and how his pattern was to seduce women and then abandon them once he'd achieved his goal. Initially, Astrid was angry, thinking I was trying to manipulate her opinion of Thomas. But when she began asking other people in town about his reputation, she discovered that everything I'd told her was true. Thomas's ex-wife, Catherine, even contacted Astrid directly to warn her about Thomas's behavior. Catherine spoke with the authority of painful experience. He doesn't want a real relationship. He wants conquest and revenge. Once he's satisfied that he's hurt the person he's targeting, he'll drop you without a second thought. The final chapter of my revenge against Thomas came when he began dating an attractive lawyer who was working temporarily at a local law firm. She was sophisticated, successful, and exactly the kind of trophy girlfriend Thomas craved. What Thomas didn't know was that this lawyer was also incredibly intelligent and principled. When she learned about Thomas's history of manipulating women and his corrupt business practices, she was appalled. She contacted me directly, explaining that she wanted to end the cycle of Thomas's behavior. The lawyer spoke with professional determination. I've seen his pattern. He targets women to hurt their partners, then moves on when he gets bored. It needs to stop. Together, we arranged for Thomas to face real consequences for his actions. She documented his attempts to bribe clients and manipulate business relationships. When presented with this evidence, the accounting firm fired him. Without his job, his reputation destroyed throughout the community, and facing potential legal action for his corrupt practices, Thomas finally left our town permanently. Isabella, meanwhile, was struggling as a single mother with no support from either of the men she'd been involved with. Her reputation in our small community was also damaged, and she eventually moved away to start over elsewhere. As for Astrid and me, our relationship grew stronger through these challenges. We were married 2 years later in a beautiful ceremony attended by our friends and family. Oscar legally became my son through adoption, and we later had children of our own. The most satisfying aspect of this entire experience wasn't Thomas's downfall, it was the life I built afterward. I learned to value honesty, loyalty, and genuine connection over the superficial attractions that had initially drawn Isabella away from our relationship. Looking back, I realized that Thomas actually did me a favor by exposing Isabella's true nature. If she hadn't betrayed me with him, she might have done so with someone else later, possibly after we were married with children. The scandal in our small community served as a cautionary tale about the consequences of betrayal and manipulation. Thomas's reputation never recovered, even after he moved away. Isabella's story became a warning to other women about the dangers of abandoning good relationships for the promise of something more exciting. As for me, I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't planned at all. It's simply living well and surrounding yourself with people who share your values. Astrid and I now run the manufacturing business together. She handles the administrative side while I focus on production and sales. We've expanded into new markets and employ several people from our community. Oscar, now a teenager, works part-time at the company during school breaks and has shown real interest in eventually taking over the business. We have 2 younger children who fill our house with laughter and chaos. The house where Isabella betrayed me has been completely renovated. We've made it truly ours, with no traces of the painful memories from that snowy winter night. Sometimes I see Thomas's former colleagues or Isabella's old friends around town. They nod politely but keep their distance, still uncomfortable with their association with the scandal that rocked our community years ago. The Marina Club thrives under honest leadership. The waiting list for boat slips is managed fairly, and corruption is no longer tolerated. Thomas's attempt to buy his way into leadership is remembered as a cautionary tale about the importance of integrity in small communities. I've learned that in a place where everyone knows everyone, reputation is everything. Thomas destroyed his own reputation through arrogance and cruelty. Isabella destroyed hers through betrayal and poor judgment. But reputations can also be rebuilt through consistent good behavior, honesty, and contribution to the community. That's the path Astrid and I have chosen, and it's led to a life richer and more satisfying than anything I could have imagined during those dark winter days when my world fell apart. The greatest victory isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something better from the ashes of what they tried to destroy. So we've reached the end of today's story. Do you think Thomas got what he deserved, or should Lars have handled things differently? I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to deal with someone who targeted your relationship out of spite? Drop your opinions in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. If this Nordic revenge saga kept you hooked, smash that like button. And if you're new here, hit subscribe for more stories where patience and planning lead to perfect justice. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.